King Arthur, Legend of the Sword. From seeing the trailers for this film, I could not wait to see it. The trailers did their job to tease us, the audience, with what looks like an amazing, fun and entertaining adventure. I love it when films like these incorporate music into the journey, and the music actually becomes 50% of the film. The trailers reminded me of an energized version of A Knight's Tale, which starred the late Heath Ledger. I began hoping for a film that had a lot of music that kept with the same energy that flows through the trailers. And to start with the good, I can say that this film did just that. The music for the film was loud and kept you focused and kept you entertained. The soundtrack done by Daniel Pemberton is amazing. I found it gripping for every second, and to be honest, the music for me was the highlight of the film. It matched with the many quick-paced scenes and flashbacks and played out well with the tone of how this film was going to play out. Director Guy Ritchie knew exactly what he was doing when creating the pacing for the film, which blended well with the personality of the ensemble cast, though this pacing soon became a slight problem, which will be mentioned later on in this review. The opening of this film was fantastic. We are able to see a pretty epic introduction to Eric Bana's character Uther Pendragon, Arthur's father, who is already versed with the magic of the sword. It reminded me of The Lord of the Rings, which made me excited for what was about to happen next. Though what happens next is where I slowly start to fade into the negatives of this film, and there is quite a bit to say. The film skips a lot of information, and it does this a lot of the time, and at the very start, after being introduced to Uther, we see him finish a war, and suddenly with a blink of an eye, literally everyone's life hangs in the balance, and baby Arthur must be saved. And this I did choose to forgive, as it was still a great introduction into Arthur's story. As previously mentioned, Guy Ritchie has chosen to style the film with quick-paced scenes to relate to the style of the characters as seen in this Comic-Con trailer.
I woke up.
From where?
From a nightmare.
What was it about? Then,
Me and the lads took care of a bit of business.
Hold up, back up. You've left something out.
Are you writing a book? They all lived happily ever after.
Now, what you have just seen here is an example of how most of the film will be shown. Many clips bundled together so much you will start to feel a little exhausted. Though yes, it does work most of the time, and it is a very unique way of showing us this particular adaptation of Arthur and the Sword. But after a while you want it to slow down, and you want to see the scale of the world, you want to appreciate the mystery behind it. But for example, Arthur is eventually led up to this place called the Darklands, and it is at this point you're hoping, yes, we get to see some insight to the magical wonder this film beholds, and perhaps see a particular character which you would have thought would have been in this film. But well, no. You get a few glimpses of big rats, one large snake, a big flying bat, the Pixar are up, a few wolves, and that is it with the Darklands. It's a shame. The fact is, opportunities were missed in this film. It's incredibly sad, as I love films like this, set in a fantasy world that blends in with tall tales of our own world. This film could have easily have been 3 hours long, and I hope we will see the works of a director's cut where all that was missing will then be revealed. It is also frustrating, as this had the story, the cast, location, and the fantasy to be a fantastic film, and it was supposed to be a 6-film franchise, but because of what is missing, we don't have much which is actually memorable. And to be honest, you're probably thinking you don't sound like you even like the film very much. Well, actually, I did enjoy it. I do recommend seeing it, even if once. This world it's set in is believable, and the characters are very likable. Charlie Hunnam, who plays Arthur, was well chosen. I've only seen him previously in Pacific Rim, which I thought he played a terrific role. Since then, I've been looking forward to seeing him again within another film. The acting was believable, and he was witty when he had to be, the hero the film was looking for. The personality is not the typical hero you'd come to expect, but due to the characterization of the film set in old London, Londinium, it's great to see a more true representation of anybody stepping into the saviour role. Now on to Jude Law. Jude Law, who plays Vortigern, is a perfect villain. I haven't seen too many films with Jude Law, but from watching this film, he can play a variety of different characters. It's good to see a villain that a film can focus on and make us, the audience, hate. It shows us the reason for why we are on this particular voyage with Arthur and his united fellow cohorts. Vortigern is a man driven by power and desperation, which Jude Law easily portrays. On to director Guy Ritchie. He has done a great job creating the style and the world the characters live in. Even though some parts of the film were quick when I would have loved to have seen more, and also have more explained when some aspects were totally forgotten. I have read some reviews saying that Guy Ritchie wasn't the right choice. Well, I feel different. He was a good choice. His fast-paced scenes were fun and attentive, and welcomed us to a variety of personalities within the film, and opened our eyes to a refreshing version of King Arthur. Even the CGI, computer-generated imagery, was extremely eye-catching in this film. And yes, at times maybe a bit glossy for my liking, which CGI can be these days, but it didn't take away from the film. Particular fight scenes when CGI was used was a lot of fun to watch. The magic was very colourful and fit in well with the lore of the King Arthur story. I loved also seeing the eyes of the mage when using magic. This was an interesting way to show magic being used and controlled than just using the typical staff. And in all honesty, I had no problems with the CGI at all in the film. The big feeling I got though after having some time to think about it, it just feels as if there was confusion on what scenes they wanted to show and how to show it, and how long for. They have all the ingredients to make a great film, but it's lost in translation. Instead, we're left with a fun time, but once it finishes and the distraction of the wonderful King Arthur soundtrack wears off, you realize there is a lot missing to make it a perfect film, and you start thinking you wish you saw that, and you wish you saw this, and so on. Especially when the film teases you with aspects that the world has, but then doesn't dive into them with the characters themselves. I love the King Arthur stories. I grew up with the Innocent Sword in the Stone cartoon. I loved the Merlin series played by Sam Neill, who you may know as Dr. Alan Grant from Jurassic Park. I also enjoyed the BBC series Merlin, though the ending wasn't particularly great. This will just be another adaptation which I'll be happy to have in my collection and watch now and again. Though it is unfortunate with the numerous bad reviews it is receiving, as I feel it doesn't deserve it. It doesn't deserve the bad press it's getting, as it is enjoyable, but because of the rushed feeling, King Arthur Legend of the Sword, even though entertaining, it is disappointing. I give King Arthur Legend of the Sword 3 out of 5 stars. One last thing though, and I won't spoil anything, but at some point during the film you will see this. Yes, that's right, big bad Ursula type looking thing from The Little Mermaid. Seriously, an Ursula type creature will be seen. I'm unsure why it was really needed, and you may think the same as well. There are reasons, but I'm sure we didn't need to go under the sea to find them. I'm Peter Wilson, and this is my review of King Arthur Legend of the Sword.